Outriders by People Can Fly and Square Enix released at the beginning of 2021 and enjoyed great popularity despite its weaknesses. With WorldSlayer, the latest expansion has now been released, and this begs one question. Is it finally playable on the SteamDeck? And how good does it perform? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Timo and I'm your host at the Deckverse. Plans can change quite suddenly. For days I've been working on an extensive video about Cyberpunk 2077 and the improved performance of an FSR DLSS mod. Anyway, friends reminded me about WorldSlayer, an upcoming DLC for the game Outriders from People Can Fly and Square Enix. In the past you had to work through various guides to make it even run on the SteamDeck and not crash at every start. However, my fear of missing out was big enough and the game was quickly installed. The Deckverse is a passion project of mine and is aimed to become the deck-centered counterpart to the much beloved Digital Foundry. There's a lot of great content in the pipe, so don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell and maybe even join our new Discord server, which offers all guides and benchmarks in written form for you to read. Besides the fact you had to work through multiple guides to get it even up and running, with WorldSlayer it seems like People Can Fly provided the necessary files to make easy anti-cheat work on a SteamDeck. That means you can now finally make this game run on DirectX 11 on your SteamDeck without any further tinkering. By the way, shout out to Square Enix for providing a press copy of Outriders WorldSlayer. First, let's take a quick look at the game's quality presets and the native 800p resolution without any adjustments. Low, medium, high and ultra. After that, I like to introduce the Deckverse ultimate target settings, which we will try to achieve in any future video, the golden 40. Once we jump into the game, one thing became quite clear. HUDs like settlements with lots of NPCs and extensive geometry will melt the SteamDeck's performance. Though that's not a big deal for now, because you usually don't have to fight for survival in those locations. Frame rates of 25 to 30 FPS are not ideal during skilling and chopping, yet they are no deal breaker. On low, we can observe a fluctuation between 25 and 35 FPS. In some places, and depending on the camera angle, even crossing the 50 FPS mark. But the many animated NPCs and the detailed environment with its doors, clutter and cloth sheets really take their toll. Moving on to medium, we get a similar result, though the actual average tends to settle a bit further down in the busier areas, rarely holding stable 35 FPS. You may guess what numbers we reach with high or even ultra, peaking just about 30, sometimes more like 20 FPS in busier areas of the settlement can't be considered a pleasant experience, not to mention the resulting frame times of almost 40 FPS. The good news though, if a true 30 FPS cinematic experience is enough for you, in theory you can simply use the lowest quality preset, limit the frame rate accordingly and start slaughtering bandits. But let's have a look at more fitting game scenes. While performance basically benefits from the fact that most of the game's levels are instant, especially when you're playing without teammates, combat is often crowded with VFX and enemy AI takes its cut as well. Low and medium both provide a somewhat stable 40 FPS peak, with major drops to mid-20s during bloody clashes. Moving on to higher settings, we notice here that the sustainable upper limit also moves down by 5 to 10 FPS, sometimes even dipping into the low 20s as soon as shit hits the fan. On Ultra, a stable 25 FPS is almost never topped. Depending on the density of volumetric fog and light effects, 20 FPS is the performance end boss, even without any combat involved. All in all, we can conclude that only low and medium are genuinely playable presets, at least without further adjustments. Speaking of that, thanks to the SteamDeck's ability to lower the refresh rate to 40 Hz, an optimized 40 FPS target offers the perfect compromise between performance and image quality. Why exactly 40? While the specific FPS target requires only a third of the extra work of 30 FPS from the hardware, at a frame time of 25 milliseconds, it's exactly halfway to 60 FPS. This combined with a refresh rate of 40 Hz, which allows the display to render each new frame with information, feels for the human eye almost as good as the jump between 60 and 120 FPS. After a bunch of test runs, I've decided on the following settings for the perfect golden 40 preset for Outriders Worldslayer. 800p with an 80% resolution scaling, an FPS limit of 40, as well as many adjustments in the advanced tab. Hold on. My initial plan was to use the in-game limiter to cap the frame rate at 40 FPS. This was to prevent input lag, which is quite heavy in Outriders using VSync. However, this results in massive frame time inconsistencies, which are annoying in the long run. Normally, I would advise against using the Wayland FPS limiter in the quick menu as alternative, as it usually also causes input lag due to its forced buffering. But oddly enough, in this case the input lag seems very small. There is a bitter pill to swallow here. In 90% of cases where the frame rate is limited through the quick menu when the game is starting, the process freezes and the game crashes. That is probably also the reason why the game remains without a deck verified patch. A workaround would be to unlock the frame rate when exiting the game for the next launch and then limit it again once you've successfully arrived at the title screen. This seems to be a bug of the engine, and as long as Square Enix doesn't provide a fix, you will either have to live with it or resort to VSync. The choice is yours. And yes, that means that the old settings I shared on Reddit and Discord are actually not ideal. Sorry guys. Don't worry about resolution scaling though. We will compensate this with anti-aliasing. As we change all the settings, quality preset automatically sets itself to custom. Effects quality medium, texture quality set to high as the deck's video memory can easily handle it, shadows low, anti-aliasing high, post-process quality medium, and last but not least, view distance and foliage quality set to low. Apart from settlements, where the framerate pays its base price anyway, we enjoy a relatively solid 40 FPS with this preset, with rare small dips to 38 FPS outside and at worst with short 30 FPS phases during fierce battles. Additionally, some areas with a bigger than usual draw distance and much action are pretty expensive but manageable. In addition to that, I always recommend enabling the gyro in the Steam Input Manager using the left trigger soft pull as enable button. This gives you additional accuracy while aiming down the sights, but to be honest, that's just personal preference. If you enjoyed this video, you know the drill. Subscribe, ring the bell. If you like, join our Deckverse Discord server in order to talk about our presets, tweaks, technical side of the SteamDeck live, and find all benchmarks and guides in text form for you to read. Thank you for being here, and see you next time when we talk about Cyberpunk 2077 and Red Dead Redemption 2 in order to get the best possible experience on your Steam Deck. But feel free to let me know in the comments if you want to see any specific topic or game covered in the future.